Hello and welcome to the Niall9 podcast. I'm Niall, and on this episode, we're going to be talking to one of the most interesting artists working in British and Irish music right now, and that is Kate Nash. You might know her from Foundations, the debut single that went to number one in the UK in 2007, or maybe from winning a BRIT Award for Best Female Artist 2008. Or maybe you saw her in the excellent TV show on Netflix Glow about the gorgeous ladies of wrestling, which stars Alison Brie, Mark Maron, and Kate Nash, along with others. But the Kate Nash of the last few years has been largely an advocate for artists, a person who kicks against the pricks of the music industry and the world at large. In the last couple of years alone, she's given testimony before UK Parliament Select Committee about the economics of touring. She shared her insights about losing 26 grand on a European tour leg and covering those losses by selling photos of her arse on OnlyFans. That got her a lot of attention and also highlighted the plight of touring musicians. A very clever campaign. Recently, she travelled around London on a fire engine, visiting the offices of Live Nation and Spotify as part of her Butts for Tour Buses campaign. She is a patron of the Music Venue Trust, representing the interests of grassroots venues. She's been one of the founding members of the Featured Artists Coalition, who are representatives of artists directly in music industry conversations. Last year, she released a song called Germ, a trans ally anthem, and went on to play the Trans Mission show at Wembley recently. She's been to Leinster House in Dublin recently as well. Last month, Niall9 debuted her cover of Sinead O'Connor's Famine, a song that serves as an introduction to Kate Nash's dual Irish and English heritage. Nash grew up in North Harrow, going to Irish dancing at weekends, listening to Christy Moore and the Dubliners at home, spending summers in Ireland. So that was one of the reasons why she covered Famine. Let's hear a bit of the song Famine before we chat to Kate. And a wide-ranging chat all about all of the above, the artist advocacy, her family, her mum from Dublin. We also talk about touring and the OnlyFans stuff as well, trans rights, direct action and advocacy, and basic income in Ireland, venues, streaming. So there's a lot to talk about Kate Nash about. Let's do it.
Okay, I want to talk about Ireland. Specifically, I want to talk about the famine, about the fact that there never really was one. There was no famine. See, Irish people were only allowed to eat potatoes. All the other food, meat, fish, vegetables were shipped out of the country under armed guard to England while Irish people starved. And then, in the middle of all this, they gave us money not to teach our children Irish. And so we lost our history. And this is what I think is still hurting me. See, we're like a child that's been battered, has to drive itself out of its head because it's frightened. Still feels all the painful feelings, but they lose contact with the memory. And this leads to massive self-destruction, alcoholism, drug addiction, all desperate attempts at running, and in its worst form becomes actual killing. And if there is ever gonna be healing, there has to be remembering and grieving, so that there can be forgiving. There has to be knowledge and understanding. There was no famine,
You've been so busy lately, and it's kind of inspiring, a lot of the things you've been doing. It's very inspiring, in fact. I think you've been such an advocate for artists lately, and the last few years especially. You released Famine recently, the cover of Sinead O'Connor. I wanted to start with that maybe and just talk about, from everything in Sinead O'Connor's catalogue, why start with Famine? Why was that the song?
I know, it's a big one to start.
Yeah. I mean, most people go for a Black Boys on Mopeds at the moment, but yeah.
So I've been working on music, exploring my Irish heritage, something I've been actually working on for about 10 years. And yeah, I just realised the tin whistle was my first instrument. So, I was born in London, grew up in London. My mum's from Dublin and my family are from Athenry, Galway, Headford, Lishin, Kyle. And we spent every summer in Ireland. And, I went to Irish Catholic school and we had a lot of Irish families around us growing up. And I suppose I had this realization that was such a big part of my music history and I should explore that in my artistry. And it just took a while to find the right collaborators and someone who understood that. And I was like in a recording session with my producer, and for the work, it was not long after Sinead had died, and I'd been revisiting her catalogue. And I just thought, oh my God, Famine is, it's such an amazing song. Like, this should be in schools. This is crazy that I've learned more about our history through this song than I did at school or even at home, really. I just found it really inspiring. And my producer was like, we should cover this. And I was like, that's kind of audacious. But I was like, yeah, like, let's actually do that. And I wanted to put my own verse in because I felt like acknowledging, I mean, Sinead's like third verse was about statistics that were relevant to the time she wrote them. And so I was like, not really sure what the statistics were in the present day. And I thought, I'm not sure. Yeah, I just didn't really want to, I felt I could leave that out and maybe put something in from the English side to acknowledge my dual nationality and make sure that it's kind of feels related to the present day and almost give a reason as to why I'm covering it and sort of what I'm trying to say and what is important to say about England in the present day. And yeah, we just started working on it and I played the tin whistle and like it felt really right. Once at first I was a little bit like, oh, I don't know if I can cover that song. And then I thought, actually I should, because the more people that cover that song, the more that education gets spread. And I always come back to that phrase that's so important in Sinead's words. And if there is ever going to be healing, there has to be remembering and grieving, so that there can be forgiving, there has to be knowledge and understanding. And I thought, it's something quite nice about revisiting my own history, revisiting and starting with like Ireland and England's history, and honouring a tributeship to Sinead. And then also it being so political and a cover. I think a lot of Irish artists are very political, and just the history of Ireland is extremely political. And my household was very political growing up. And I think that tradition with folk music as well, that, songs are passed down through covering and sharing songs. So I was like, there's something really nice about doing it. And yeah, going straight for famine instead of feeling like you can't, because actually a bit like Jam, that I wrote last summer, these untouchable subjects or subjects it's scary to dive into, I feel it's an important time to be able to do that, as if you approach things with respect and the patience to like understand something, then that's probably a really important evolution for me as a human in the world that does have opinions. But I'm very much like, I'm questioning the way that we communicate online and the way we share information and the toxicity of the social media and how so much misinformation is spread. And I'm like, actually, like, take a seat, have a listen, educate yourself. Like, social media is not the platform you think it is. And perhaps there's better ways of like sharing things you care about. And that to me is through art.
It's interesting, I think since Sinead passed, I think because she was such a truth speaker and a person who, like, she was ahead of her time. And
she was so ahead of her time.
Just before she died, the documentary that came out kind of really underscored that. And then obviously her biography as well. And you're like, wow.
Yeah, brilliant.
I remember like just before all that happening and her dying, and it was like, she was so right about so many things, and people weren't ready to hear it. And that was the thing. And so I think another thing that's kind of happened is not only yourself, but like a lot of Irish artists here are really being inspired by Sinead. I have a theory that it's slightly like Sinead's death has kind of galvanized a lot of Irish artists to be able to speak up more than maybe they ever were, because obviously there's been so much solidarity being shown. There's so much artists speaking up and protesting at like festivals like South by West, at the US military, showing solidarity for Palestine. So, yeah. I mean, did you kind of feel that when she passed as well?
I just felt so sad that she kind of didn't get to have the moment of being around for that revival. And so often, so many women don't get that, where there's like that second thing where you, like, I'm so happy when I see women later in life getting celebrated for what they did when they were underappreciated at the time. I always think, oh yes, like so many women do die like in music, and I'm just was very sad that she didn't get to see how. I'm sure she knew she was important, but like you said, she was ahead of her time, so people weren't ready for a lot of what she was doing. Whereas now it's like everyone's kind of doing what Sinead was doing.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I feel like growing up from like 18 in the music industry, I do remember feeling like I relate to things with Sinead. Like she said that she was a protest singer, and she got confused as a pop singer because she had a hit. Yeah. And I don't feel like I'm a protest singer really, but I do connect to that because I feel like I snuck into pop with Made of Bricks because of MySpace, and I had this hit, and I do feel like, oh, I'm not really for that world. I don't really fit in there. And a lot of that world made me very angry. So I relate to Sinead's experience there in a different way, in a different time. I'm not as, famous as her and not experiencing some of that reaction that she did. But I did grow up like calling myself a feminist, and journalists would be like, oh, no other artist will say they're a feminist in 2007. And publicists would jump on and be like, she's not going to answer that. And I'd be, like, yeah, I am a feminist. I wasn't ever afraid of, I think because my mum as well being Irish and political, it was so natural to me to talk about politics, but it wasn't necessarily in my music. Whereas the older I've gotten, and the more noisy the internet is, the more I feel like this is not healthy, and this is not a way to approach it. And the best place as an artist that you can speak your mind is in your work. So you just have to calm down and get offline more so that you can be of some use. Because like everyone's shouting into the void at the same time is just terrible, and it's making everybody extremely unhappy and anxious, and it's not achieving much. And the people that own these companies are the bad guys. So it's like, I don't know why we think we can use these tools to benefit ourselves when actually they're owned by people that are like, no, we are manipulating you and you know it.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, we know, but please, can we?
Here's my Instagram post anyway,
But like, I know, because we're all like, we've been told, your personal brand's the most important thing. And now we're all like, why are you treating me like a product? And it's like, it's weird. It's a weird time.
But it's also really hard to avoid the political, the system, things that are happening around the world, obviously, because you used to be able to ignore that in music easily. And at the moment, you certainly cannot, and
no.
It would feel disingenuous to do so in many cases. And obviously a lot of people do, but a lot of people now don't. They really are speaking up for what's going on and all the things that are happening that are clearly wrong. Yeah. And, you're right. You can put things on social media, but that won't change anything. And it is, the discourse is obviously toxic in terms of, the binary nature of giving it.
We need conversation, man. We need to be meeting people and seeing both sides of things. And I think that we can't even call ourselves humans if we're not able to do that and understand complexities, And I think that, as a musician, you do have a platform and a profile where people actually come together in a room and watch you play music. So that's kind of an amazing thing that's happening, and why people are realizing, maybe this connection is something that, could inspire some sort of hope or feeling rather than just a post, which doesn't really.
Yeah. And then you have you've obviously Jeremy's about trans rights, and then you see the opposite, an Irish artist like Roisin Murphy, who I used to just really respect and adore, now going the opposite way and saying some very troublesome things online, and just kind of very misguided and damaging as well. And you're just like, how does it get to this point? How do we get to a point where somebody who had a majority queer audience is now being so negative and somehow blaming trans people for being responsible for her ability to speak freely?
Well, that's what's really sad, because it's such a small percentage of the population that is trans. And as I say in Jam, I think that using feminism to erase the rights of others is just inherently unfeminist. It's not feminism to trample on vulnerable people's rights. And I think that feminism has made mistakes in the past. And that's the role, in my opinion, of a modern day feminist, and an ever evolving one, to go, what were some of the issues in the last movement and how do you keep progressing? It's like, isn't that the point? And I don't know, it's so scary to me, things like Twitter and rabbit holes online and social media, because genuinely, I think people might have an opinion or might say something that is offensive, right? If you're going to just put it in, who's deciding it's offensive? It's been decided it's offensive. If you say it online, you'll be attacked. Then that's a really scary feeling. You can have physical reaction, like as if you've actually been attacked in real life.
Yeah.
And then if somebody then joins your side and is like, hey, you're right. And actually look at this. And like, we've got your back and you're so brave for speaking out. And if you're only kind of listening to that, which I think a lot of people are, like spending so much time on these platforms, you know, it's really bad for the mental and your critical thinking is quite challenging. It's difficult. And like, I worry that, like the feeling of being attacked online by the woke warriors is then sending people further down the rabbit hole to become even more right wing and even more sort of, like backed into their own corner, but fighting back. And there's a lot of false information. And it's just really sad to me that you'd like put that on trans people who are so vulnerable and they're like being blamed globally for so much stuff that's not their fault or problem. And they're just trying to like live their life, you know, and get healthcare and be able to be trans in the world without being attacked for it. And that's becoming increasingly harder. So I don't understand how feminism aligns with hurting trans people at all. I just it doesn't make any sense to me. I get like wanting to have critical conversation,
but
and
that fixation
the
on it is like
the healthcare system and who's actually trying to take everybody's rights away and looking at it with the critical mind of like, where are the risks and where do we need to be like having each other's backs and rather than like, it's so weird to me to just go, no, I'm blaming these vulnerable people. And it's like, what? Like, it's so, it feels like a madness. Do you know what I mean? It's like a madness of the internet that's kind of driving people down these rabbit holes, and it frightens me really.
Yeah, I feel like the idea of critical thinking is something that we really need to improve in terms of learning, and that applies to, you know, all of these conversations, but also like AI and all these kind of things, and how people like understand the world and how to like. We should be teaching critical thinking more readily in schools about.
Well, should politics just be taught at school now as a subject everybody has to learn, because everyone's becoming politicized on social media, but a lot of people have never been taught anything about it. So they're taking their main feelings, you know, and they feel they're on the right side, and they're taking that from social media, and that's it. And so, like, perhaps that's got to become a primary subject if we're going to be living in this like era of like news and politicized content. Then maybe people need to equip young people with some, like, from a very young age, it feels like. It's crazy. It's actually so stressful. I like,
but it's not even a new thing. It's something that's been happening for a long time, and we're all kind of
it's accelerated the past 5 years. Like, it's absolutely accelerated. And
I think COVID obviously didn't help. I think
and they make changes to these apps all the time, and you don't even realize the tiny little tweaks that are different are affecting our minds and how we interact and how we become socialized. It's all, and they're like working with neuroscientists. It's really evil. It's like Star Wars evil. Do you know what I mean? It's like someone's writing a sci-fi comic book. And they're like, let's make evil people like try to have mind control the entire world. And you're just like, why? It's so stressful. And
then you put in becoming an emerging artist into all of that, for example, and you're like told you have to use TikTok and Instagram and to make a living for yourself or to make a name for yourself. And you're like, and then you look at like the reach that you have on, for example, myself as a music person, and you're like, wow, all these people who are following me all the people I follow, I will never see their post. They will never see my post because they're important to us. So it's like that kind of, the algorithm dictates so many things that are so problematic for us. And
it's so against you.
And it's fighting. It's fighting like the creative nature of artistry as well, obviously.
And I don't think you can fight it. I don't think you can actually fight. You know, I'm trying to focus like my efforts to making changes to the law in the UK, because I feel like I can make impact, and I can, you know, I'm getting invited into Parliament in England, in Belfast City Hall, in Dublin, actually, in Ireland as well, and like I sort of feel like MPs and people that, like, there are some MPs that care and trying to get their attention and like change legislation, because these companies are not going to, music industry not going to change anything. These tech companies, like, they profit, they make way too much money. And they've already kind of proved that they don't give a shit. because they made all the terms and conditions themselves. And they're going to do the same with AI, you know, like the same that the music industry did with streaming, where they're like, we're not going to get involved until, and then they're going to suddenly be involved and they're going to sign the terms and conditions under NDAs, and no one's going to know what the truth is, and then they're going to stay really rich and everybody else is going to get fucked over. That's what's going to happen.
So you mentioned UK Parliament.
It's a fun conversation, isn't it?
These are interesting topics to me. I mean, obviously they are, and they are to you because you're clearly interested in them.
I am. I'm pissed off.
Yeah.
You know, I can't see how me now would make it, and I just like see artists younger than me who aren't from a major label or from a rich parent, and they're like, I'm not going to do a gig because I just lose money. Like even a gig, one gig by themselves, it's like, this is crazy. And the pipeline to sort of being able to like make it, if you're not just like being bought, it's being erased.
I think the landscape right now is pretty bleak for new artists, and I think it is very difficult. Obviously there's loads of different reasons for all of that. I mean, and you've been covering a lot of them and advocating for change in a lot of them. Like, for example, so you did the UK Parliamentary Select Committee recently. What was that experience like for you? What were the like main issues that you were talking about? It was mostly about touring, right?
So that was specifically about touring in the EU post-Brexit, and talking about what, like, whilst they negotiate deals, like what could be more helpful for musicians. So there's like a few things. One is, you know, processing times on things like A1 forms, reducing costs of carnet, and increasing the limits to like merch that you can bring into Europe so that you can like profit more on the tour to make it viable. It was really scary to be in Parliament in front of a committee like that, but ultimately I felt really proud as well to be invited in, because I feel like I can use my experience 20 years into my career I do have confidence with public speaking, and I've been sort of wading into some issues where I feel like I can politically be challenged and questioned. And I did really also want to get across that there's not one problem, and that even if the deals in Brexit like improve and get really good, that doesn't mean that that's going to change things for all artists, because some artists will still not even be able to do tours at home. So it's not, you know, there's not one problem that the music industry is facing. There's so many, and like all of them need to be improved in order for things to get better, I think, really.
Like even stuff like insurance has obviously gone up, and all the things that
but like in the pandemic, rehearsal rooms, like I can't do much rehearsal now. It costs like, I'm spending over £1,000 to do a day's rehearsal. Before, if I do, I'd love to do like 3 rehearsals. It's like, can I spend over £3,000? No, I can't spend that before I go. Like, it's things shut down in the pandemic too. So people that had like van rental companies, and there was more rehearsal rooms now. There's less. There's like less options. There's people are back on the road. There's more demand. There's so many. And then on top of that, like your recorded work is stolen from you, so you don't get paid fairly for any of it.
Well, we'll get to that. Just in terms of like, you know, you've been very like frank about the money you've spent and lost on tours as well, which is obviously really useful for other artists to see. And I seen the other band again, they did it this week, is Los Campesinos. Sharing their like breakdown of everything that it costs for their US tour, and
it's awesome.
It's just really useful to see that, and I think it can be quite empowering to see how people are doing, and when you think, you know, you're at a certain level and then you're spending $100,000 and how much everything costs. But in terms of yourself, I mean, you went without a manager, am I right, for a long time? So was there, I mean, you must have learned a lot then doing that, so you must have a kind of unique perspective, because you have a take on all of it, really.
I think like being on a major label, getting dropped, being independent for 12 years, going through 20 managers, getting stolen from, going to court, then getting a job as an actress on Glow, and working with 14 other female comedians who are actresses as well. And they told, like, sharing so much, and being in a union as an actor. If we were working overtime, these girls knew like what they were getting extra money. Like they knew so much. They knew their rights. They knew exactly how much they'd be paid if this happened, if that happened. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know anything as a musician. We're not taught to know. Everybody else does a job that takes care of everything. And then you're just like, let me just sign off on this and not understand it. And I think it just really opened my eyes to like also sharing our wages so that you could bring the lower up. was like a sort of feminist tactic used in negotiating deals. Like I would share what I was being paid, even though I was like in a higher tier of just, some people were guest recurring, some people were series regulars, and that like helped other people. And I think, imagine if a festival had the lineup and then you had everyone's fee like written under, and you'd see the disparities in like who's getting paid the most, and is there like, are women all getting paid less? Are Black people getting paid less? Are gay people getting paid less? Like, it would be so amazing. And there's power in sharing what you're being earned. And in music, you've been encouraged to be a bargaining chip. So a booking agent will be like, I'll give you this if you give me that artist. But like, no one's telling each other anything, because if you tell anyone something, you're failing and it's embarrassing for you. And I was on tour in America and I just thought, this is so hard. I'm bleeding money. And I'm also then like, need a photographer at shows to make it look like I'm having the best tour, because that's how I market myself. Because if I don't do that, what's the fucking point of even doing it? I just feel like such a liar, because I am having a good time and I do love my job and it is a success, but no one knows how much it's costing me to do this. And probably think like there'll be people that will look at that and be like, how is she doing that? And I must be such a failure if I'm not able to do that. And I just felt bad, because like I know loads of other musicians that have had really hard times in the industry, and I just wanted to be honest. Yeah. And I think like that experience on Glow really informed that decision to just say the truth about my finances and how much I was losing. And that's why it got thousands of shares, that post, because so many musicians felt they didn't have to put themselves on the line or be embarrassed about their own failures or what they were selling, to make a tour happen. I know people that have sold furniture, like all their household items, just to try and pay their band. And I just think we need to start being really honest, because it's empowering to recognize that what I was saying a lot, you're not a failure. The music industry has failed you. The music industry has failed all of us collectively. It is not on us to just take full responsibility for everything that they have done. They created all the terms and conditions. It can't be fully on us. Yeah. But it's so easy. Like the amount of conversations you hear about, especially women, oh God, she's crazy. She was crying under a table. She was off her head on drugs. Like, oh, she spent all of her money on clothes. Like, I've heard men talk about women like this in the industry so much. And it's just a bit like, well, you were like, if you had anything to do with her career, why were you exploiting her? Why were you not guiding or supporting? Or, how was, like, it's so easy to just say an artist is crazy and doesn't know anything. And actually, that may be a little bit true, but we do know stuff. We are capable. Yeah. And the more that we can share with each other, the more we can actually learn and protect each other. Yeah. We need to unionize. If we don't, it's over.
Even the Los Campesinos stuff, where it's laudable to do so. I mean, they're coming from a position of, we decided to tour, we actually have full-time jobs, we bring our kids, and that's something you never saw before. I've seen a lot more of that behind the scenes of people going, I have to bring my kids on tour to do it properly. Obviously this is like something, it's very obvious maybe, but it's not said often. So those kind of things. I mean, in terms of like having done those committees now and engaging with politicians, do you see any positives coming down the line? Anything that is, obviously a lot of the time it's like you're just telling them what needs to be done, and you're kind of translating an entire industry for them, and that's part of the job, is like you're there to tell them what is actually happening. What was kind of the reaction you got from it? Did anything positive come out of it?
So in the moment at the time, like there was positive, responses. And I think being able to bring that side of like, people know who I am, and there's like an emotional side to having one of the artists rather than just the people behind the scenes talking about it, that I think like it brings a bit more intrigue and interest. And it's very surprising for people. It's always surprising for people to hear about the music industry and how it actually runs. But I'm working with the fan-led review, music fan survey. And that's, I think, the future, because data is power. If you believe we live in a democracy, you have to listen. Politicians have to listen to the people. That's how it's supposed to work, right? Democracy. And so like if as a fan you could get involved in fan-led data, that is what will give us what we need to make the changes. That's what they've done, similar things in football, to use fans to like actually be able to make changes, because fans matter, and it's also affecting the fans because they're not going to have they're not going to have venues to go to. They're not going to have artists coming on tour apart from stadium shows that cost 700 quid.
Yeah, and they're only going up. And those
it's
VIP tiers are really becoming part of nearly every big arena show now.
It's disgusting, man. It's actually disgusting. I feel no respect for anyone doing it.
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely. But it seems to be, from my perspective, seeing new gigs announced, all of a sudden every gig seems to have that tier now.
Yeah.
Where it used to be, maybe it used to be just like American artists because they had the whole culture of it. But now it's like everyone, like the National have it. You're like, what?
Yeah. I know, but you need it. You need it to make, I mean, I had to have it in the US for like, well, how much were the prices? They were like, I think the maximum would have been, I thought it was like $30, 30 to 50. I can't remember what it was. Maybe it was less, because you cannot like, and that gives people want to meet you anyway. You can't do it at every show, in my opinion. I'm actually at least also like meeting. I think most indie bands are doing it with like, they meet their fans.
Yeah.
And that's kind of fair enough, because like a lot is expected now when you're kind of doing a show, and then you've got to do like a million photos and videos.
Yeah, it's like going to the merch desk afterwards and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, which it can actually wreck your voice, but it's a nice way to do it because it gives you a bit of time. But these like concert tickets that are like super expensive, even like 100 quid, like that's expensive. And most of those artists are not even doing meet and greets. They're giving you quick access to early access to the merch. So you're getting like a merch packet that doesn't cost 100 quid. You're getting an early access to buy more shit, and then a concierge comes to your seat so you can buy a bit of fancy beer. It's like, is it just you're paying to be able to buy more shit? That is a really good sort of like weird example of like the capitalist bloated society that we're in, where you're just paying to be able to pay for stuff.
And then the venue is taking a bigger cut of that merch in the first place, and that bigger venue as well. So obviously you've seen some artists take that back into their own hands recently.
And that's really hard, because then you're like, well, either my merch becomes really expensive for my fans, or I sell it in a car park around the back of a venue,
which I've seen people do. Like, I mean, and why wouldn't you? Because that's where the margins are these days for artists when they're touring. So why wouldn't you do that? So and you spoke about grassroots venues there as well. I mean, are you involved in that campaign as well? You became a patron of the Music Venue Trust, so I guess that's part of that as well, right?
Yeah. I'm a patron of the Music Venue Trust. I think they do really important work.
Yeah.
And the grassroots is in crisis, and without grassroots, like, we don't have developing artists.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're seeing it here in Ireland as well. We had so many, and we have a Give Us the Night is the name of the kind of advocacy group who mostly for electronic music and club nights and club venues. And
a bit like Save Our Scene, maybe.
Yeah. So Save Our Scene, a bit like that, but this is specifically about, we have such archaic licensing laws here that they've been in place since 1935, and there's all this red tape that like it was introduced for like jazz to stop jazz dances. So you need a dance license still. You need all this different.
Oh my god!
Yeah, it's crazy, and they could just easily change it. And there's been so much work and dialogue with government officials and in the last 10 or 15 years to do so, but it still has not changed, because the thing that keeps happening is something more important comes along, or the government change again and you're starting again. So all these late licenses, all these things that have to happen, like every time a venue opens late night in Ireland, it's like 410 quid or something just to open late. So obviously that has a knock-on effect for emerging artists who just want to try something out. Or you want to play a late gig? Well, it's going to cost you this much, so it kind of it stops progress in that way as well.
Totally.
Do you get a chance to go to grassroots venues yourself and go to gigs?
Well, I was just at Sound City in Liverpool, which is a really amazing festival, which is cool to kind of see that city thriving, really, and be at some really interesting looking older venues that even, like the whole city's like buzzing. Liverpool anyway. I don't know if you've been, but it's like it feels really, really lively, and that's not just because of the festival. It's like people are out, experiencing nightlife. But I do try to go to gigs in London as well, and like see either friends or people telling me about stuff or things. I want to try and have that connection to like it should be about as well. Like,
Yeah.
I'd like to go to the Great Escape. Like, I do like a city festival, even though they can be a nightmare and really hectic. I think it's really important for cities outside London, especially, to have that. Well, just because then you can really, you get to see those venues and you get to kind of just be aware of how much emerging talent there is, you know.
Yeah.
We do need those venues because those festival lineups are packed.
Yeah, for sure. Great Escape's on next week, and there's lots.
Yeah.
There's 20 Irish bands playing there. It's a great.
I went to Fela Negrena in Limerick.
Did you?
Last year?
Nice,
Yeah, which was awesome.
I still have not made it. Yeah, there's always a festival on that weekend that I DJ at and stuff. So yeah, I've always missed out on it. It looks great.
Those venues are so cool. I'm obsessed with Tom the Bomb, who DJs at the Commercial. I don't know if you know.
No, I don't. No.
Oh God, he's a Limerick legend.
Yeah,
he's in his 70s, and he flyered me after another gig I was watching, and I've got it in my wallet, because he makes these play cards as part of his thing, because he's an artist. Tom the Bomb, that's him.
Oh, very good.
But he's in his 70s now, and it just like says
nice.
That it doesn't like
Tom Prendergast. Yeah.
Prendergast.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah.
And he doesn't have social media or anything, but he puts on the most amazing club night, and loads of kids go. And he DJs out of like 2 bags of CDs.
Nice.
And you're just hearing the most eclectic mix. And he's like, his thing is clicking. Do you know this?
Yeah, no.
So he clicks in time to the music, and he kind of stares out at the audience. And his wife is in the crowd, and she's in a red dress, like dancing in the crowd. And then he gets off the stage and like walks around the venue, and he goes around just like clicking, and everyone's like clicking back at him. And it goes completely off, and like you'll hear stuff you've never heard, and then you'll hear like Ricky Martin, and you'll hear, like Noel Hill, and like it's really eclectic and the funnest night out I've had in a while. But that was an awesome festival. I saw another band play there that I really loved. I can't remember what they were called now. But I think festivals like that are really interesting. They're more interesting to me than like, a major festival.
Yeah, for sure. There was a really good one here recently in Athlone as well. That was
oh, really?
But just like small community festivals that are putting on really interesting artists, and it's great to see. And they're happening more and more, because it means obviously not everything is Dublin based. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that happens in Galway and Cork and Limerick as well. But like, it's nice to see those places that do not have any kind of real live music ecosystem, as in festival live ecosystem happening.
I played
city things,
I played Highland sessions on Inishbofin.
Oh, did you? Out to the islands. Nice.
Out to the islands. Oh my God, it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was so, the generator, like the generator ended up being the only power on the island because there was a storm, and everything else.
Yeah.
So we had the only power.
There's quite a few festivals that happen on islands around, especially that coast, and it's they're really obviously very challenging. Some of them you have to get a boat on.
You're like, we got a speedboat out, and we're like walking through the bog to get to the tent, and it was awesome though. It was such a cool experience.
They are a great experience, and it's funny. I think after COVID, a lot of those ones have kind of reduced a little bit, but there are some coming back again. It's very important. But talk to me about your. I mean, you spent summers in Ireland, and so where did you go? What were you hanging out? You mentioned Galway.
Predominantly in Cavan, actually, in Sligo, because that's where all our cousins were. So we would go down to Galway for trips, because it was where my mum grew up. But the family now that I have, that we're close to, I have family in Sligo, Cavan, and there is somebody in Athenry. Yeah, so it was just like, I don't think I appreciated what we had when I was a kid, because I felt jealous of my friends going to Spain and Turkey.
Of course,
and I was like, I'm going to Ireland. Like,
again.
It's going to rain, and I want to go to like a beach resort or something. And now I'm like, God, we had the best holidays ever. And we'd just be like running up and down like beaches, wild Irish coast, and then like playing in fields and streams with my cousins for hours, like running off into like the middle of nowhere. And you're just so much natural beauty. And I sort of started doing these return trips as an adult by myself, because I really wanted to drive around Ireland, because my vivid memory is being stuck in the back of the Volvo with my sisters and like getting travel sick, and like one of us like puking on each other and not being in charge of the music, and like not being in charge of where we're going. And I felt like I need to reclaim this as an adult and like do my own road trips around Ireland. So I've done a lot of driving around and kind of getting to different places. And then I've been recording at Spiddle, at Coon Studios in Spiddle.
Nice.
Charlie Lennon's, the late and the great Charlie Lennon studio. And I just like now I just see that beauty and I'm so comfortable in that environment, especially on the West. And I feel like, I don't know, I just feel like there's a home there for me, you know.
Yeah.
And it's important for my mum too, and emotional for my mum, being able to go back home and see me like having a relationship with it too.
Yeah, and so she was from Dublin.
Yeah.
So
Ballymun.
yeah, okay. And so you did that lovely portrait with Elias Grace recently in Stony Batter. Was that planned, or you just happened to go there?
So I was in Cavan. I was with my mum's cousin, and like she just was showing me all these cool photos of her and like my mum and her sisters and stuff hanging out in this apartment in Dublin. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And she was like 14 North Circular Road, and I was like, let me write that down. I was like, maybe I could find it. And I was driving back to Dublin from Cavan, and I was like, I'm just going to see if I can find this place. And I found it on it's on North Circular Road, right? You know, Phoenix Park, right at the end. And I was like, oh my God, it looks exactly the same. Like the door is the same color.
Not much has changed around there, no. Not
much has changed. And I was with Elias and Rian, Nora, fashion designer in Dublin. And I was like, I want to do a shoot. And she was like, do you want to do a shoot? She was like, do you want to do it tomorrow? I was like, okay. And she was like, shall I get Elias? I was like, should we organize it? I was like, yeah. And we just organized it really last minute. We got up at like 7 a.m. and just like, we're like, let's try and recreate these photos. And that sort of became a bit of a theme of like taking family photos and then like recreating them like as I was like exploring and hanging out and stuff. And Elias is so wonderful and such a beautiful artist too, and so easy, like both of them so fun and easy to work with, that it just happened like really quick and we just couldn't believe it like looked exactly the same.
Nice. In terms of then the Irishness you had at home in London, like how did that come out?
I've been talking to some of my mates about this who are also that sort of Irish families living in London that went to like my primary school, St. John Fisher. So to me, like Catholic school is a big part of it. And just being around like Irish families, you know, like my mum like left, basically my granddad couldn't get any work. My granny moved into a flat of somebody else in the basement and was the cleaner and the nanny for the family. And then my granddad, you know, went over on the ferry, ended up in Newcastle, got some work there, sent money back, eventually could move the family when my uncle was about 7 or 8, I think. So then they all moved over to Newcastle and grew up in Newcastle. And eventually, like my dad was in Dartford and my mum was in, like I've been in, my family home is the same in North Harrow for like my whole life. And it was like a lot of Irish people in Harrow. And we went to St. John Fisher School and then like St. Joan of Arc Catholic School, secondary school. And I just feel like every week we were at the O'Briens and the McNamara's after school, and it would be like one parent would take all the kids. So there'd be like how many kids was there? Like 4, and there was like 10 of us. And so we had like, there'd be like one mum with 10 kids for dinner, and then we'd be at the McNamara's, and then we'd be at the O'Briens, and then they'd be at the Nash's. And it was just like community that my mum had in going to mass and like having that community at St. John Fisher. And then we all got put into tin whistle lessons because one of the Irish teachers was like, all the Irish kids are going to play tin whistle. So we learned tin whistle. And so Irish music was definitely a big part of it. But religion's a big part of my upbringing. And it wasn't like a strict, it's a weird thing to explain, like I'm dealing with some of it in therapy now, but it wasn't really strict, but we did go to mass. And I was quite a serious Catholic when I was little. I loved it. I loved my communion. I did my confirmation, and I was very like serious about religion and my homework, and I wanted to be part of it, you know. And then as, you know, my sort of 14 up to about 14, and then 15, 16 became more about like drinking and boys. And then I went to theatre school, and then everything was different. But it's with you, that Catholicism. I think. Yeah, I mean, I so far haven't got rid of it because
you don't. I think that's the thing. I mean, every Irish person has it.
It's painful, the guilt,
you know,
shame.
Disentangling the internal Catholic guilt you have. It's a real thing.
It's so painful. But then I'm like, I think it's why morality is so important to me, and right and wrong, and a sense of justice and being political. Like I do see it as tied to a lot of my personality and a lot of what I care about in a positive way. But it's got, you know, some problems, and I think that, and I also like totally understand that my parents were doing the best for us that they could, and making decisions about getting community and trying to keep us safe and go to the best school that they could have, you know, because they couldn't. Like where we were, there was like some rougher schools, and it was like, go to the Catholic school, you're at least going to like the kind of better school. And but you know, definitely was taught that like masturbating I was going to go to hell for. I remember finding that out and being like, oh god. And I remember like watching abortion propaganda videos and being like, yes, I'm against abortion. I'm like, you know, you can't have sex. And we had one teacher who like told us, if you have sex, use condoms. And she was like, don't tell anyone I told you that because I'll be fired. And it's just like such weird.
Like it doesn't feel that long ago, but it is like, God, it feels like, thinking about it, the framework of which you were placed in when you were younger in that regard.
And then I think navigating relationships is like so strange because of that.
Yeah.
Because I have trouble like letting go, and always have, even with like terrible people. Because you're like, well, I'm in this for life. Like no matter what.
You can't get out of the Catholic Church that easily if you tried. They made it very difficult as well.
Oh God. Yeah, it's like, I'm just like commitment, long-term commitment, marriage and all that stuff. It's like trying to unpick like all that stuff, I think is important for what did Sinead have that t-shirt? It was like a recovering Catholic.
Recovering Catholic, yeah.
She wore that there's a photo of her, the t-shirt.
I mean,
like recovering Catholic.
Maybe that's where it comes from, but I feel like we're all recovering Catholic.
We all are. Like we're all in it together, at least.
I went to mass when I was a kid, but only because my granny used to go to mass, and we all went because she went. You know what I mean? And then I remember like specifically like teenage years, just being like, I'm not going to go, and then we're like, oh God, I'm not going to go. You're literally doing it for your granny.
Like, I remember not going, and the guilt started of that. Like when I stopped going, of like, oof, this feels wrong. I loved confession. I used to confess all the time to the priest, and I was like, oh, such a relief to confess my sins.
God, it wouldn't be nice to just have that now, where you're like, just that sense of, you know, I mean, that's what therapy is. So you have to pay for it.
I suppose you just pay for it now, but we had it for free.
yeah, exactly. Oh God. But you went to Leinster House in December as well.
I did, yeah.
What was that? What was that visit about? And how did you get there? What was crack?
Yeah, I was invited by Pa Daly from Sinn Féin, who was at my Glastonbury set, and I believe is a fan of my music and what I've been kind of speaking about. So he invited me, knowing I was in town, and I think like knowing that I've been quite outspoken, and he knew I've been working on some Irish music, and I got to sit on the Good Friday Agreement Committee, which was really crazy to think about, because I've been going into all this family history. I was like, God, like, what would my granddad like think of this? Like, if he knew his granddaughter was like a musician and invited into this building and sitting in on this. You know, it's just like mad. He was never alive to see me. I never met him. I just thought, God, imagine if he knew that, you know. So I felt, and I also, having been in Parliament in London, where Parliament is like, you're near like the London dungeon, and you're like, the history of London is the walls, and it's ancient, like statues and gold and steps, and everything feels like there's guns and people, and it's like the artwork is like, wow, it's so old and so much money and formal, and like portraits of Tony Blair sitting on a chair looking really serious, and like Margaret Thatcher, and like every prime minister, and you're just kind of like, it's big and it feels powerful, and you're like, oh, I'm small in here. And in Ireland, in Dublin, I felt like it's so interesting. The people on the walls, the paintings, are of people that were like the rebels, you know, the revolution. It's just a different feel. And the things that are up in people's offices and posters and stuff, I was like, there's like something punk rock about this, because the formal space, the walls are filled with rebels. I'm like, how interesting, like just how interesting, really. It just felt very different. And like it would have been a real honor for like my grandparents to know that I was invited in there.
Yeah, for sure. Has anyone talked to you about, or have you seen about the basic income that came into Ireland recently?
For musicians,
Yeah, well, for artists in general, yeah. So it's obviously
it's artists in general. I thought it was just musicians, but that's great.
Yeah, well, eligible artists can receive 325 quid a week. So it's essentially like a kind of a dole, but also there are issues with it, but it's obviously been like very positively welcomed. I mean, the issues it has are to do with the fact that it's very limited. So it's actually only 3 years at one time. So you can only apply for it for 3 years at a go, and then you have to stop for 2 years. So there are obviously issues, and there could be money there for it, but it's a good example of what could be done in terms of artists and fundamental government support. I was talking to Music from Ireland, who are like kind of they help support artists at showcase events, so they're going to help the 20 artists at Great Escape, for example, and they were saying, because everyone was talking about like, well, why is Irish music so popular at the moment? What's going on? Because we have these waves, we seem to have these waves that happen. But at the moment, it's like the theory seems to be there's a lot of confidence, and there's a lot of confidence because one of the theories is because they're fundamentally have access to grants to enable those kind of early tours to happen internationally, which it's kind of, I've managed bands, and I'm just like, you kind of do forget that other countries don't have this. You kind of forget because you can access this funding with Culture Ireland and the Arts Council and stuff like that here. And you forget, so it's just easy to forget that stuff. So like it is a reminder sometimes that like, yes,
it's really interesting.
Obviously, there's issues still for everyone, but like it is nice that you can point to a few of those different things and be like, well, that is something that's positive.
It's a great example. Rian Honora is very vocal about. She's done projects about this, I think, or she's done some like a piece about she had it framed in her studio. She applied for a grant as an artist, but the Irish government doesn't see fashion designer as an art form. So she's been very vocal about that, and that's.
I think it's the same with comedy out here. So yeah.
Oh really?
Yeah. So it's like,
so we need some updates.
We need some advocacy there for sure, and there are people trying to that, but again, it's just like these things take so long for some reason.
It's making me think about so much. It's making me think about mothers who should be paid for a job too, like appreciating things and making it accessible and understanding the constraints of the job and like investing in these things will impact the outcomes.
Okay, you were talking about Spotify maybe a couple of years ago, but in terms of like kind of like what you said about it when you were doing the Save Our Scene stuff, you said like they built an ivory tower and they're leaving artists behind. Album countdowns, playlists, and billboards don't cut it anymore. It's like all the stuff they put in front of you to convince you that it's we're doing stuff for you. So I mean, it seems to be a lot more people have joined that line of thinking recently. What's your impression of how things are going there in terms of, I know Spotify is just one streaming service, but obviously it has a very low royalty rate, and do you think the public know that now because of,
and they've monopolized the industry?
Yeah. Do you think the general public are more aware of it now?
I think there is more awareness. I think my arse helped shine a light on that.
Yes,
because that was like definitely a good way of getting attention. Lots of people wrote about it because I started an OnlyFans.
It was so clever. Like, I mean, it was so
which
clever.
is still going, by the way, if anyone's interested.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like to go, I'm just sick of talking about this and no one caring, and let's get some attention on the issue. And it certainly did cause a stir.
For sure.
I don't think things are better. They're not going to budge. They've responded to me saying they've paid out over £500,000 for just one of my tracks, and I'm like, well, that's not enough money.
Yeah.
Considering how many streams I have, and they're like, oh, it's not up to us who the rights holders are, and this is the majors and the streamers pointing the finger at each other, like, oh,
coming back to the obfuscation.
It was them.
Like, oh, we don't know. No one shares information.
Don't know what we're doing. It's like, yes, you do. You are so rich, and you're making so much money off of old catalogs, mostly like Elvis and like the Beatles and whoever the hell, like from the 60s and 70s and the 80s. And And you need to think about the future of music. But to be honest, do they even care? Or will they be like, it's fine, we'll just have AI artists and we won't even have to worry about paying anyone ever?
Yeah, I think the more that things develop in the music industry, the more you see Spotify's reaction to it and you go, okay, they're not on the side of the artist.
And also look at the app. Like you can scroll on that thing now and it's just like advertising you videos of podcasts and random stuff. I'm like, this is just weird.
Yeah, so many different things last year led to me stopping using it in a full, like especially in a 9 or 9 capacity, but also just personally. I use Qobuz now.
It's not even enjoyable.
Like, no,
what do you use?
Qobuz, that I think it's a French one, but it's album kind of led and it's got editorial and stuff, and I really like it because it's kind of, for me, cool. it's kind of given me this kind of, I actually just focus on albums now as opposed to single tracks, was what I used to just do, and I just really enjoy that. It's kind of made me reconnect with new music in a very different way, and it also has stopped this whole deluge of like, there's, you know, obviously there's thousands of tracks released every day on streaming services, and like, as somebody who writes about new music, you can't keep up with it all, obviously. So retraining yourself to like just think about albums first is also something that's been really like sustainable for me. Do you know what I mean? And like,
and it builds a relationship.
Yeah.
Like if I think about all my memories of early music, it was all about, I have so many feelings. I'm like, I remember my bedroom and the purple walls and my silver pillow and my silver CD player, and I would like got this album and I put it on and I sat down to listen to it, or I was like, oh my god, this new artist, Miss Dynamite, is going to be played on the radio tonight. I need to get my tape recorder ready so I can hear this track. She's apparently really cool. And like these moments that soundtrack to my life and are associated with memories and how I felt as a growing person. And it's like that just is erased by being like, blah, blah, blah. Here's access to every single thing that ever happened in a hit. And you're like not building connection. I just don't know if the future of like, not just music, but of our entire lives is like making things easier and just giving you like a mass of everything. It's like overwhelm. It's not enjoyable. You're not being responsible. You're not connecting. You're just in a zombie. Like we're literally going to be WALL-E, the movie WALL-E.
Well, there are like slow movements. There's things happening where people are taking the power back in those ways. For example, like people are revisiting their iPods and MP3
I love
players
that. And CD players. Young people carry Discmans and stuff.
And it's just like that limited library. Like, I mean, Brian talks about like the power of limitations a lot. And then you're like, if you have a friction in something you're doing, it makes it sometimes more worthwhile to get there. Yeah. So that kind of speaks to like the AI thing. If you're making AI music or whatever, it's so easy to do. Like, what is the process? The process is the point
What's
of it.
The craft? Yeah. Where's the interest?
So
like interesting part.
I think, but all of these conversations have led to people going, okay, we actually have to take the power back. Social media, Spotify, the ease at which. And then, for example, like TV shows and films licensing expiring and disappearing from streaming services. You think you own something, you don't own anything. All those kind of things. These things are, people are noticing these things and kind of going, right, well, what we have to build an alternative ecosystem, if not just for ourselves, but also for our communities as well. So I think that's something that I think I'm seeing a lot of at the moment, and I think it's really positive, really, really positive. So hopefully we'll get more of that. Kate, it's been lovely to chat to you.
You too. Thanks so much.
Great. You're in Galway in July.
I am. Nice. Arts Festival.
Very good.
Very much looking forward to it.
A good buzz there in Galway you'll have, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Lots of great menus, lots of great food to be had there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ardbia, loads of great spots. God, Galway's full of amazing food spots.
Kai, is it Kai?
Kai, yeah.
God, I love that place.
Kai for brunch, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And presumably you'll have another 1 or 2 Irish dates soon, would you say?
Yes, great. Definitely. That's going to be on the books.
Lovely. Okay, well, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Of course. Thanks for doing it. Kate, thanks so much.
Cheers.
I'll talk to you again. Nice one. Thanks a million. Appreciate it.
Left us uninformed and we are lost. Like the reality of our history, like decades of land we invade, not just killing, crushing culture, taking away identity and heritage, tradition and music. Therefore love, confidence and understanding about who you are and where you're from and what you're made of. It's essential that we educate. There's blood on hands and guilt at stake. England needs a hug. It's backed itself into a corner like a scared dog. If we can learn the truth with compassion and understanding, we can move forward, and then we can learn not to pass on our trauma. And if there is ever gonna be healing, there has to be remembering then grieving, so that there can be forgiving. There has to be knowledge and understanding. And And if there is ever gonna be healing, there has to be remembering and grieving, so that there can be forgiving. There has to be knowledge and understanding.